Today we're going to explore 3-bet pots. We are in the small blind. We 3-bet the button called, and now the flop comes and we have to decide what we're going to do. So on this board we have top and bottom pair. It's a monotone board, so I would say we are going to bet most of our range small or check, and this hand is definitely more of a bet, I would have thought. But it's only a 5% bet, the small one. Okay, now with the fourth spade, I'm pretty sure that I just want to check. And this is wrong. Wow, look at this. And we get bet into, and I think in real life this might be a fold, but in GTO territory it definitely isn't. So we call. Now 3 doesn't change much, so I think check is fine, and he checks behind, and we lose to pocket nines with a 9 of spade. But I want to go back to the flop now, because look at this, it is actually mostly a check, but same EV. So I would have thought that we bet quite a bit of our range, but look at this, it's basically a range check. I think I got carried away, because in real life you do want to bet small quite a bit, because I think villains might overfold. If he has, for example, pocket nines without the spade, then he might fold. But it's actually a 90% check board. Okay, good. So I am a bit rusty, but let's see. King 10-4, this is probably close to a range bet, and we have top pair, good kicker. I think I would go, well, probably can go 20% or 33. I'm going to go with a 33, and this was not the main option, but fair enough. Now with the queen, we lose to ace-jack. We obviously lose to sets, but we win against everything else. I think we can definitely continue betting. The size is the question. I think with the 2 flushes out there, even though it's a 3-bet pot, I would go 50%, and I am wrong again. Look at this, what do I know? Okay, now we lose to any jack, so I think, well, again, this is another one where in real life I would never check call this, but in Silverland, I think check call is probably the way to go. And he checks behind, and he has pocket aces. And we win against pocket aces this time. But once again, let's have a look. Wow, this is a big bet board. So normally, king and XX boards would be small bet boards. But look at this one. It really is. So like this. The bigger the size, the bigger we bet, and we even overbet a little bit, right? 1.8% of the time. So that is very, very interesting to see. Let's see what our range does in general. It never checks, so I got it right that it's a range bet board. And we do have quite a bit of big bet going on, which is really interesting. Okay, I would absolutely not have thought that. But it's good to know. So the king and the 10, that makes it a bit wet, and then the flush draw as well. So that's probably why we go pretty big. Also 2 high cards, but no, 2 high cards normally means we should small bet. Okay, and now on the turn is mostly a check, but if we bet, we want to bet rather small. So that's interesting. But again, look at this, the EV of anything is basically the same. Right, King Jack on 10-6 deuce, so this is a board where we can either go big or check, and I think the majority of our range would like to check, but I still think that probably about 35-40% would want to bet big. Here, I'm just going to check, and it was not the main one. Okay, because we probably because we have the back doors, and now he bets small, but I think out of position with king high and a couple of back doors. It's a close one. Solver might call, but I think fold would be no. I thought fold would be good, but we are totally wrong, apparently. Okay, so let's just back up here. We start with a check, and this is not the main option, neither for our hand nor for our range. So we do want to press edges by betting fairly big. That's okay. And we are losing quite a bit of EV. I would not have thought that, but yeah, it's actually a raise mainly, or a call, but just never ever a fold. Interesting. A7 on 5, 6, 9. This is quite wet. We can bet, but I think this is the type of board that we really want to check a lot on. And yeah, this is mostly a check. When he bets so tiny, we definitely have a continue. The question is whether we want to raise or just call. And I think because we only have a gut shot and 1 over, no backdoor flush draw, we would probably prefer to call. That is indeed the case. On this jack, there's no reason for us to donk. Definitely checking. And he checks behind. And now that the flush comes in, we don't have a blocker. He could have taken a stab with anything. The question is, I mean, we might have some showdown value. He could have done this with King 10 or something like that. But the question is whether there is a better way than just checking. But I don't really think there is, so I will check it. And yes, 100% check basically. And he bets really big. We have ace high, and he's saying he's got a flush now. And I don't think, especially for this size, I mean, no, I'm saying especially for this size, he's very polarized, so he shouldn't bet this size with ace high. So we don't really lose to a lot of his bluffs if we call. So I think it's probably closer than I first thought, but I still think it is mainly a fold. No, it's actually 100% a fold, and we got bluffed by queen high. But I just want to go back to the flop. So that was a check, but we could have bet big, and then it is mainly a call. But as I said, we could have mixed in some raises there, and then the check is fine. He checks behind, check again, the right thing on the river, and once he bets, it would be burning money if we called or raised, so fold is the only option. Ace queen on ace ace 8. This is a range bet board, tiny with his hand, definitely not doing anything else. We get bet into pretty big. We get raised. I think we'll just let him bluff it off. So just calling. The king. Oh, it wants us. I automatically clicked the check button, checking to the aggressor, but it actually didn't want that at all, because that is just so much our range that we should have donked this one, interestingly. Now, obviously never folding. We could either jam at this point, and because we made the mistake in Solverland of not donking, I will just jam, but now it's not telling us what to do. And yeah, you see, I mean, he had king 10, he was just goofing around, but I want to go back to the flop. So yes, the small bet, the tiny bet is number 1 option. Number 2 option would be the slightly bigger one, 33%. And when we get raised, there is no reason for us to raise, so it's 100% call. But this is interesting that we are supposed to bet 100% of the time now. Although, with our, it's interesting because with our range, we prefer to check, and we only really bet with a good ace or pocket kings, or then, I mean, weirdly with hands like jacks and tens, nines, queens, queen jack, but I can only imagine that we see all of these as bluffs at this point, although it's quite interesting. I mean, if you have pocket queens and you're trying to bluff him off what? An ace? A king? I don't really know why you would actually really donk with pocket queens. To me, this looks like a polarization mistake because you're hardly getting called by anything worse, and I would bet that you can't really get an ace to fold, especially with a small donk on this turn. But anyway, so then the rest of the hand, because we made that mistake, we can't really see. Okay, ace king on queen 3 deuce. We can bet big or we can check. I think this is actually like normally queen high boards, but usually with two middling cards is close to a range check. But I wouldn't be surprised if our main option here would be to check, especially because we don't have backdoor flush draw either. It's not the main option, but it's an okay option. Now again, we could check raise, we could check call. I'm going to go for the call. Again, not the main option. The jack comes. Do we want to donk? I don't think so. In real life, I would never donk. So check, check. And on this river, I think we do have plenty of showdown value. We don't need to turn it into a bluff, and we can't really get called by much worse, maybe by ace 10 or something like that, but I think check is, well, look, check was not the main one, and he has pocket sevens, but yeah, maybe we would have been able to get him to fold that, but I think it's fine. So here, the big bet would have been the main option, and what do we do with our range? It's just split between all sorts of sizes, and check would be the main one, so that's why I checked, because I thought the range we would mainly want to check, so I wanted to mainly check with this hand, but apparently solver prefers the big bet. And now it would have liked to raise, but no EV loss when we just call. And on this river, it would have wanted us to go all in. That's interesting. I did not even consider the 2.5x jam on the river after we played it so passively. And in general, it does want to check most of the range at this point, but for some reason, ace king off without a spade is a jam, and he probably has to fold pocket sevens. And I think that's why this is designed for to fold out some mediocre pairs. Interesting one. King jack on 8-3 deuce. This is another board where we can either check or bet big, and because previously wanted to bet big, I'm going to go big this time. Not the main option, but we get him to fold a hand that still has quite a bit of equity, even though King 10 suited was dominated by our hand, but it would have liked to check. So I think the pattern that I'm recognizing is that if we don't have a backdoor flush draw or many backdoors really, then we would prefer to check. But if we have any of those backdoors, then the big bet is actually quite good one, and we can see that the majority of our range wants to check, and if we bet, it's more like 75 or 50% the big bet. At least I got that one right. Aces on 9-3-3. This is another one. Oops, now I can actually see what we want to do. So this is a bit cheating, but anyway, I was going to say that it's either a big bet or a check, and the majority of our range would probably want to, I think probably check, but just slightly. And aces is a hand that wants to check more than range, so happy to check it. We get a bet into, and I think now we do want to raise, and he did not like the raise, at least not to the size. When the jack comes, I think we want to continue, and we'll just get it in at this point. And again, a mistake, and look at this, we got a full house. But I just want to see why this was bad, what we did. So let's just back it up a bit. So I think I made a mistake here now by clicking the wrong thing. But yeah, so at this point I said raise, but does it only want, yeah, it just wants to slow play it, interestingly. Okay, and at this point we want to check. Well, actually, it wasn't even checkable. It wanted us to donk, which is like very interesting. These donks, I don't really play much of a donk strategy. And now that we didn't donk, I think we want to go all in. But no, I botched this one completely. And I just want to go back to the start of it. So here, calling, and if we raise, we just want to raise smaller, but again, the EV loss is tiny. So the mistake that I made here, I think, is not very big. So that is okay. Ace-10 on 10-9-6. This is a tricky board because the straight is possible, but the SPR is so small that we don't really care about straights. And so we can either bet big or check, and I think with this kind of hand on such a wet board, we do want to bet big. So I will go for the bet 75, and this is correct for a change. Now the ace, because we bet big, he should not have a lot of ace-x in his range, which means that this is a very good card for our range. It definitely is a good card for our hand. So I think we can continue betting, and we can easily get it in. So I think we don't have to go to big, but I'm tempted to go 50%, but I'll just go bet 33. In real life, I'll probably go somewhere in between. This was not the main option. Now he jams, and I think we have a very easy call, and he has us beat with a full house in the end. So just want to go back to the flop. So the majority of our range does want to check or bet big, and with this hand it's just the other way around. Happy with that. And here, yeah, as I said, I was between 33 and 50%. Okay, solver prefers the 50%, but that is okay. And we do have an easy call, so this hand we played all right. Next hand, ace-10 on ace-9-5. This is pretty much close to a range bet board. We can go 20 or 33%. Ace-10 is not that amazing. We might lose to ace-jack, ace-queen, slow played ace-king, although on the button I think you should 4-bet ace-king. You might have some aces, but there's only one combo left. So I will go with the 20% option, which is the favorite one. And I think we don't really want to bet much more because he doesn't have any. He could have some ace-x that we beat, but not a lot. So actually, our hand is not as strong as it looks. So I will just go with the check. And that was correct. He checks behind, and the king is quite good for our range. I still think we can't get too much value, but I would still go with a small bet. Now, I don't know if I want to go just 10%. I think 36%, and we might still get called at this point by a hand like maybe pocket 8 or so that don't believe us, and we're giving them a good price. So I will go for this, and it is indeed the favorite option. And as I said, pocket 8s. Look at this. So this is our first 100%er. Oh, very good. So just want to check what they say. So it's not a range bet, but I mean close 22% check, but mainly the 20% option. This is, I don't know, what do we do with the others? Oh yeah, this is 28%, 33. Okay, so this one was fine. Check on the turn is the main option, but we could have bet. Look, it does bet small. quite a bit, but I definitely prefer the check with this hand. And look here on the right, you can see, or I can make it bigger, you can see that if we have a hand like ace king or even ace queen, we want to bet quite a bit. Ace 9 obviously being the 2 pair, we want to bet big, but other smaller aces, including the ace 10, we want to check. And on the river, this is the only option that we really have, although betting 10% would be basically exactly the same EV, and even checking would have the same EV, and even betting bigger would have almost the same EV. So all good on this front. Ace queen on jack 5 deuce. This is one where we want to big bet or check with our hand. I think we can do either, and we do not have a lot of backdoors, only the straight one, so I will check. And it's not the main option. Okay. Not folding now that he bet small. Let's raise this one, although I think calling or raising are both fine. And he calls, and once he calls and we do not pick up any more equity, we should, I think we'll just check. Not the preferred option though. And he's giving us such a good price. We have 2 overs. We do have to call at this point. And on the river, no reason to donk now on this blank. So we're checking, and he's shoving, and I think we have to fold. Yes, and he had a set of 8s, which he turned. Okay, back to the flop. So our range wants to bet a lot more than check, which is interesting. So yes, in big bet, I expected that, but I didn't expect that check would be so low. But I guess the 5 and the deuce do not connect super well with his range, so they're kind of blanks already, and the jack is actually not bad for us. That's why we want to bet big quite a bit, and that's why with this hand we would have wanted to bet big as well, and call would have been the preferred route after he bet small, but the raise is absolutely fine. And then on the turn, it would have wanted us to continue pretty big with a 50%. Although with the majority of our range, it does like to check. I don't know why not with this hand, but probably because we have no real chance of winning if we just check. And then on the turn, once he bets, we have 100% call. We check. When he goes all in, it would be burning money to call, so the fold was right. Ace king on 10-10-9. So this is another one where we can go big or check. Both are fine. The 10, he does have quite a few tens, so do we. I think I prefer to check this one, not solver though. Again, same situation. I am just going to call with my 2 overs. When the 6 comes, no reason to donk. He now bets half pot. We still have the nut no pair. So I think solver would probably like to call again, but I think it probably just mix some folds, check the river, and if he now bets, we would have to fold. He got there on the river. This is 5 high. So okay, we would have wanted to bet more than check, but with our range we want to, also with our range we want to bet a lot more. Okay, so I'm just being a bit too passive on these boards. Basically, I should just want to bet a bit more, and the 50% would have been the main one. And I just want to see what to do on the turn, but first we have this bet. on the flop, and we want to mainly call, but raising is fine. And now once he bets, we can actually already fold, and calling is not a mistake, but it would be better to fold, although against his exact hand it was actually fine not to. Great. Let's go to the next one. Ace 10 on 10 Jack Queen. So this is a board that we want to bet small, but want to bet pretty much our range. Now we do have the Ace of Spades, we have a gut shot, and we have bottom pair. I think betting 20% should do the job. It's not the preferred option though. And now with the board pairing, we have bottom pair ourselves. I think we want to check this one. And when he bets, I think calling, we don't want to turn it into a bluff at this point. Well, calling was the wrong option, so we would have wanted to turn it into a bluff. And now, because it was a 0% option, it doesn't tell us anything to do on the river. But let's go back to the flop. So we bet small, and look at this. We should bet big. Wow, this is interesting. So 0% checks with our entire range. So I got that bit right that it's a range bet, but I thought it would be a small range bet rather than a big one. So I am surprised to see that it is a big bet scenario. And we bet small, he called, and then after taking this action, it would want us to continue betting small, although I don't quite understand why, because what better hand can we fold out, and what worse hand calls us if we bet small? I guess some flush draws, yeah, I mean, maybe because there are 2 flush draws out there, but I actually do like the check in real life more than the small bet. And once he bets big, we have a fold. It does not want us to continue, so that's quite interesting to see. Even though we have the gut shot and we have bottom pair, we could improve to a low full house or to a better 2 pair with the ace. It still wants us to fold. And it wants us to fold 100% of our range, even though the EV loss is not huge. King Queen on 8-7-7. We can bet our range small, and I think that's what we're going to do with everything. And once we get raised, even though we have the King of Spades, I just think, I mean, we do have the nut no pair, but I still think this is one where I would want to let it go, and it does too, so I'm happy about that. Let's just check the flop again. Okay, so small bet or over bet is actually another option, but the small bet is the preferred one. And with our range, we want to mainly small bet as well. Some checks, so it's not completely a range bet, but look at this. A lot of red and not so much green. Main hands that we want to check are indeed King, Queen, off, and pocket kings. And then on the branch where he raises us, we can call, we can even re-raise ourselves, but the best thing is to just fold. Okay, next hand, ace jack on king 10-8. This is another one that we want to bet, and if we bet it, I think we want to bet rather small, but not too small, so this time I'm going to go for the 33, which is not wrong, but not great either. So now we have an open-ender, and at this point with the open-ender, do we want to bet? I think we want to check because we don't want to get blown off our hand. So I will check it. He bets again. Is there merit in shoving now? It would mean that we're saying we have queen 10 or a set. And I think we want to take our equity and we'll call, but this was wrong, sadly. And now there is not much we can do except check fold, but I want to go back to this. Okay, so it would have wanted a bigger bet on the flop, although it's not wrong what we have done, but it does like the bigger bet on these boards, even though a king high board. But we had that earlier actually with king 10-4 where it wanted a big bet, but there we also had a flush draw. But I mean, the main takeaway here is never to check on the king high board, but you can definitely go bigger. We went quite small, and we got called, and then it would have preferred to continue betting third pot, but the check is fine. And once he bets half pot, we have to either fold or raise. So the call was just not great there. Okay. And then whatever after that. Ace 5 on ace 8-7. This is one that is not a range bet, even though it's an ace high board. And I think we want to check. So we want to bet quite a bit, but we also want to check. And with this hand, I think I would want to mainly check. And yes, that is what solver does as well. Now the middle card pairs, that's not great news for our hand, and I think I would want to check again. We just can't go for too much value. So check, check again, and on this river now, I think we do want to go for some value. He could have hit the 10, he could have some pocket pair, but I wouldn't be surprised if we just still checked it down. But I will go for the third pot bet, and this is indeed the main option. We got 100% this time, and he had queen high, didn't turn it into a bluff at any point. Okay, so let's see. The range wants to check. That's why I thought the range wants to check 2/3 of the time and wants to bet small the other third of the time. On the turn, it wants to still check about 2/3 of the time and still wants to mainly check this hand. And on the river, it wants to bet small or check indeed once again. And now it wants to check only a third of the range at this point, because now it wants to finally bet all the ace X. Funnily enough, ace 5 is the only hand that mixes in some checks. Well, not the only, one of two. Ace 9 also wants to do that. Okay, let's do two more hands. Pocket queens on ace 9-5. So this is a similar one to the previous one. I think we want to check most of our range, and therefore we want to check pocket queens as well. So that is correct. And once he bets half pot, we have to call. The ace pairs, it's good news for us, because it makes it more likely that he doesn't have an ace. So definitely checking again. He now bets half pot though. I think we have to call again. If the ace hadn't paired, maybe it would have been a fold, but I think because of that, I do want to call again, and this is indeed the case. Now the flush came in, we have to check, but if he bombs this, and he does, this is a truly ugly one, because he's saying he has an ace or a flush, and unless he's just going to town and triple barreling with absolutely nothing, we have no chance of being good. So, I mean, I wouldn't be totally shocked if the solver still calls, but in real life, this is 100% a fold, and I will fold, and it is actually 100% fold in GTO territory as well. So I'm glad to see that. And again, as I said, on the flop, it's a range, not a range check, but our range wants to mostly check. So I'm happy with that. Here we have to call 100% of the time. And on the river, no, sorry, on the turn, we have all 99% call. But look at the EV of this. Basically, folding is not really a mistake. And on the river, we have 100% fold, but calling is in GTO territory. Calling is only -1.16. However, in real life, it's probably close to losing 50 in this spot. If you ever get triple barreled in the 3-bet pot where the flush comes in and there are 2 aces on the board, then you are close to dead. Anyway, last hand. Queens on 4-3 deuce. This is a board that I would want to bet big or check. Pocket queens need enough protection. Question is whether we go 50 for 50 or 75%. I'm gonna go for the 75, and that is the correct option. And he folds his jack. So this was between check and big bet. Yep, thanks for watching. See you next time.